This is a special edition of Late Night Health. I'm Mark Alyn, along with Dr. Greg Celaya. Dr. Celaya is a functional medicine specialist, and today we're going to talk about leaky gut syndrome. Dr. Celaya, welcome back to the program. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Hey, Mark, how you doing, bud? It's good to see you.
I'm doing great. Let's talk about leaky gut. We hear about that a lot. It's even been in the news, and I believe it's crossed over to the allopathic or traditional health side of medicine. Can you give us an overview of what leaky gut is all about?
Yeah, Mark, leaky gut is one of those things that is becoming more and more popular as more and more research is happening. We've known about it for quite some time. But what happens is your intestinal cells have a normal space in between them. And I'm going to make this simple. What happens is due to certain issues, and we can talk about that as well, that space in between the cells ends up being greater than it should be, letting bad things or just normal things into your blood that shouldn't be there. I don't want to say normal things, but proteins that shouldn't be in your blood.
Leaky gut has been linked to other major diseases, and that the gut, the intestinal tract, is actually the beginning and end of health. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Oh, yeah, that goes way back to Hippocrates, 2,000 years ago. The disease begins in the health, and it's because it is the major place where things enter from outside of your body to inside of your body. And most people think that when something goes in your mouth, it's inside of your body, but it's not. It's still considered outside.
Explain that.
Well, your whole digestive tract is nothing more than a tube that is contiguous from the outside of your body from one side to the other.
Right.
It becomes to be in your body when it gets into your circulatory system, which is different.
In other words, after it's broken down and absorbed by the body, the nutrients?
Yeah, exactly. That's what's considered inside of your body.
The diagram that you have made for us today shows inflammation. And you and I have talked about this in the past. Inflammation of an ankle, because you twist it, is different than the kind of inflammation that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a whole different scenario. We go down to the cell level, which can have inflammation. And if you look at the diagram, you can see that you have normal tight junctions in between the cells. Well, due to inflammation and damage, that space has been increased and hence causes a leaky gut, where you're absorbing proteins into your circulatory system that shouldn't be there, or amino acid sequences. And the problem comes when these amino acid sequences or small portions of the protein go into the circulatory system. These sequences look a lot like body tissue parts. For example, gluten. Gluten looks a lot like your thyroid tissue part. So when you're...
Wait a second. Whoa. You mean that gluten, which is found in just about everything these days, from ice cream to bread, that if it's broken down, it actually looks like the tissue of the thyroid?
Yeah, there's certain amino acid sequences that if they're not necessarily broken down correctly and you have a leaky gut and you're absorbing those sequences, they look a lot like your thyroid tissue. Your body then sets up an autoimmune response to attack those amino acid sequences of not only the undigested gluten, but now it becomes your thyroid gland. And that's something called autoimmunity. That's just a simple way of how it starts to work.
So it's not only attacking the amino acids of the gluten that you've consumed, but also, in this case, this example, also your thyroid itself?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many different foods that have very similar amino acid sequences as to parts of your body. So we end up with autoimmunity as a result. And that's just one of the reasons that we can have autoimmunity is a leaky gut.
One of the things that we were just talking about is cellular inflammation. Can you see that visibly say, under a microscope? Is that something that needs to be tested, or is it just reaction?
Well, there's a lot of different things. I'm sure that you probably could see it with some types of microscopes, but you can look at things with lab results. So, for example, with leaky gut, we're looking at a protein called zonulin. And zonulin is a protein that moderates the permeability of the tight junctions between the cells of the walls of the digestive tract. So we're looking at zonulin, and it helps us understand that if zonulin's high, we may have intestinal permeability that is greater than it should be.
Intestinal permeability. That means
permeability.
Right. Permeability.
Yeah, it's one of those words.
One of those long doctor words. But that means that the nutrients pass through the wall of the intestine faster?
Well, it's different. I mean, if you go back and look at the diagram, you can see that the cells have what we call microvilli. They're little like fingers that come off of the top of the cell. And that's where most of the absorption happens. When we have damage to the cell spaces in between, the damage to the actual proteins or the tight junctions, that now the cells have space in between them, and we can absorb amino acid sequences. In addition to that, the cell itself can be damaged, causing a space that's greater than it would normally have, and hence again cause an amino acid sequence to be absorbed that shouldn't be absorbed.
So that would be the malabsorption on the chart here.
Well, the malabsorption comes perhaps even from a little different reason. Is sometimes you have those amino acid sequences jamming everything up, and you're not able to absorb the nutrients that you need.
Wow. Is leaky gut becoming more and more common, and is it problematic?
Well, absolutely, it's important, and it is becoming more problematic. I mean, there's so many things that can contribute to it. You have inflammatory foods. You've got gluten, dairy, processed foods, sugar, fast foods, excess alcohol. The medications, you got corticosteroids, antibiotics, antacids, medications for arthritis. You have infections. I don't know if you've heard of H. pylori.
No.
But that's a big one. You have yeast, parasites, viruses. Chronic stress is another one. That can raise cortisol and other types of hormones that can create leaky gut. Imbalances in estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, thyroid hormone. And believe it or not, autoimmunity itself can enhance or increase leaky gut, which is kind of a backwards thing.
So it's kind of a round robin. One causes one and the other can cause it as well.
Absolutely. Changes when they process foods, like, for example, they deaminate wheat to make it soluble in water. Or you have glycation of sugars, and you have food additives such as food coloring, which can change the protein structures and create inflammation and create problems. Also, the lack of vitamin D is a big one because vitamin D helps protect the gut lining.
Interesting. How common is it? I mean, you just said it's prevalent. Is 30%, 20% of the population? What do you think?
That's a tough one. I haven't seen any research that shows me how common, but autoimmunity is one of those things, right? You have cancer, you have heart disease, and you have autoimmunity. Those are the things that we're fighting nowadays. And autoimmunity, in most all circumstances, you're seeing a leaky gut component one way or another.
Interesting. What do I do if I'm told I have leaky gut? What are the ways of fixing this?
Well, there's so much to do. First off, we have to look at diet. We have to look at everything from A to Z. We have to look at testing to make sure that it is a component and you may have some issues. And further on, we need to see if there's autoimmunity involved as well. And autoimmunity is important because you have a 70 to 90% likelihood of developing other autoimmune conditions after you have one. And so one may not be that big a deal. And don't get me wrong, let's say a thyroid autoimmunity called Hashimoto's may be a big deal, but it may not be as big a deal as MS, which you can get next. So
Hashimoto's is a big deal. A lot of people are getting that.
Oh, no, yeah, don't get me wrong. It is a big deal, but I'd rather have Hashimoto's than MS.
Sure.
And there's a whole laundry list of autoimmune conditions that you don't want to get. So when most patients go to a doctor and they're being treated for thyroid insufficiency, they're just given thyroid hormone and they're not being treated for the autoimmune condition. And that's the problem. You have a 70 to 90% likelihood that you're going to get another one and another one and another one because nobody's fixing the problem. You have to get down to the root cause, and diet's a huge one. I mean, I'll suggest patients that they consume bone broth or kefir, yogurt, raw cheeses, sauerkraut, kimchi, coconut products, sprouted seeds. You have supplements, probiotics, enzymes, L-glutamine, licorice root, quercetin. There's so many different things you can use to treat it. And we have special shakes and other types of things that can make a big difference for leaky gut.
Yeah, you mentioned bone broth. That's becoming very popular within not only the health industry, but it's also becoming popular in restaurants. What is bone broth?
I haven't seen it in restaurants yet, but basically, there's so much of nutrient that we're lacking because we've kind of changed our food the way we're supposed to eat or the way we are eating compared to how we should be eating. And if you remember way back when, right? I don't know if your mom cooked a lot of soups and they cooked them forever and, all the bones were left.
They used to buy bones at the butcher. The butcher would give it to them and they were beef bones and they'd make stock for the soup.
Exactly. There's so much nutrient involved. And, so for example, you're going to eat a chicken breast. Most people pull off the skin, which is a big issue, because the fats are so important to what we need to consume. But also, when was the last time you ate chicken gizzards, livers, and hearts? Probably never, or it's been a long time.
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For Thanksgiving, my mother would make stuffing, right? Yeah. And her secret would be to buy a little thing of gizzards and chop them fine and throw it into the stuffing. So I have eaten them.
Yeah, and I'm the same. And I remember even eating liver when I was a kid, liver and onions.
Yes.
Didn't like it, but I ate it.
Couldn't eat it.
No, but now
it's good for you?
Oh, it's great for you as long as you do it in moderation. But our diets now don't have these organ meats in them.
Wow. In our remaining couple of minutes, Dr. Celaya, what would you suggest that people do if they think they might have leaky gut?
Well, usually people don't think they have leaky gut, unless there's some diagnostic issue of a celiac or some other type of intestinal issue. Usually it's something we find, and it's as a side result of an autoimmune issue, which many people don't even know they have either. So we do testing to evaluate the patient to find out what's going on. And usually they're dealing with an issue that is long-term, and really nobody's diagnostically found what is going on. So we'll look for autoimmunity in that aspect, and then therefore we can either test for autoimmunity for leaky gut, or we can just assume and make those changes, which is great anyway. I mean, it's, you're not missing or losing anything by changing for a leaky gut type of program for a period of time, and then we change diet accordingly. And
to see if you feel better after you've been on it a while, right?
Yeah, but it's, let's say, for example, you have a leaky gut issue and you're absorbing a amino acid sequence that triggers the immune system.
Right.
Well, you're now setting up an immune response that could last anywhere from 6 months to a year. So fixing leaky gut, first off, isn't that simple. And number two, if you do and when you do get it fixed, you still have an immune response that could be there for quite some time. So just because you start working on it and fixing it doesn't mean that you're going to be well all of a sudden.
It takes time.
Yeah, it takes time.
It takes time. Dr. Celaya, thank you very much. We both are wearing different headphones this week, and mine were adjusting earlier Dr. Celaya's just fell out of his head. It's just technology, folks. What can I tell you? Listen, if you want information on Dr. Greg Celaya, go to drcelaya.com, drcelaya.com. And you can also go to latenighthealth.com. And we have some of these videos posted at latenighthealth.com. Any closing remarks, Doctor?
No, thanks, Mark. If you want to know anything about autoimmunity or leaky gut, like Mark mentioned, you can go to my website, drcelaya.com. You can schedule to become a new patient or even get a free 15-minute consultation. And so I hope to see you there. And
I know that Dr. Celaya is my personal physician, and he will work for you as well. I'm Mark Alyn for Late Night Health. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.